For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh. Revi. On the gist today, our guest is Indonesia's ambassador to India, Ms. Ina Krisnamurthi. Ambassador Krishnamurthi, thank you so much for giving us time. It's just been a few months, I think you've been in India.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that we've been able to
Thank
meet
you
up.
for having me. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here.
Pleasure is all ours, ma'am. India and Indonesia, Ambassador, you know, the locations itself, the geographical locations are so strategic that it makes it natural for us to be partners apart from history and civilization and language links, right?
Yes, very true. Surprisingly, when I was announced to be the ambassador of Indonesia to India, one of the challenge for me is to communicate with the domestic. When I said India is our neighbor, they questioned. And I said to them that Andaman and Nicobar Island is actually only 120 kilometers and 1 hour flight from Indonesia, which is from Aceh. So then they are realizing that from the map, very close. So when I said neighbor, they question because they see neighbors means ASEAN and Australia, but not India. So yes, it's quite near. And second issue, you talk about past, present, and future. I think recently I make this statement over and over again that between India and Indonesia, we need to build connectivity, not only the hard infrastructure, but also the connectivity between the past, the present, and the future. We sometimes ignore this because we thought, well, we're close already. So why we need to build connectivity of the past and the present and the future?
Now, again, like I'm saying, the location, Indonesia calls itself, you know, global maritime fulcrum. As you said, 1 hour flight from Aceh to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. What is it? 500 kilometers maybe. Tell us a little bit more about India and Indonesia's maritime cooperation.
Well, for maritime cooperation, now is very close because we have so many engagement in all pillars, be it in P2P, be it in B2B, and also G2G. Even for G2G, we even established the joint task force of Andaman, Nicobar, and Sabang. That's for the G2G part because with the G2G between provinces, it makes the cooperation makes it concrete and more implementable rather than capital to capital. For maritime also, because the first time in the history of our bilateral relations, we are having a general, marine. From time to time, he has this mission of increasing, strengthening, deepening the relationship in the maritime defense cooperation. And it's very important for us to always be mindful of the Indian Ocean. It's not dividing the two countries. It's actually converging the two countries, sort of, yes.
So you're referring to your defense attaché, I presume, who you're saying who's a general.
Yeah, general.
And you're being humble not to tell us that you're the first.
Yes, the first women ambassador from the 73 bilateral relations between India and Indonesia. Quite proud of that.
I would absolutely
Quite
imagine
proud of
so.
it. At least from the point of view of my government, it's time to show Indonesian people that maybe with the soft power of being a woman, this relationship can go further.
More power to you, ma'am.
Yes.
Again, just on the maritime issue, you mentioned Sabang port.
Yes.
What is the progress there, and why is it, could you explain to our audience, why is it so strategically important?
Yes. Even now, I believe the Indian government already sent experts to have the feasibility study. And the feasibility study already submitted to our government to see whether investors from India can develop the port. And Sabang, the provincial government, which is Aceh, very keen on having investors from India. I cannot mention the investor though, Amitabh. But yes, we are so keen to have investor coming and making the port of Sabang more livable because the challenge is very high. It's the door of the Indian Ocean, so the tide is very high. There's also the challenge of the pastime tsunami also to be considered. So many things that needs to be done for the Sabang port. Now it's not the time for us to think about the challenge of the post-COVID economic, but it's time for us to think about the future. So the investment for the future, because port is quite resources. It needs quite a bit resources, to be built and managed. But it is important for the future investment. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, part of the investment between India and Indonesia into the relationship in the maritime domain is exercises that our navies and coast guards have. We had a Corpat, I think, coordination patrol recently as well.
Yes, and post-COVID or during COVID even, because our Minister of Defense came to India during the highest number of Delta. But he was so brave to coming to India to show support and be thankful of India's support to us by bringing the vaccine early on, right? So since 2018, there's an increase of exercise between our naval ships and our personnel, be it in land or on the sea. And I see also increase of the naval ships coming to Cochin. I'm here 5 months already. 3 ships already coming to Cochin. So
stay here longer.
Very rapid development in that particular area. Yes.
India has a defense policy of make in India and maybe export or make for the world. A neighbor of yours, the Philippines, has just got into a deal with us for the BrahMos supersonic missile, which is built and developed in collaboration with Russia. What kind of collaboration are you looking at? I mean, is BrahMos part of it, or any other systems?
Well, on BrahMos, I cannot. Maybe I cannot openly discuss here, but I think I don't want to compare with the Philippines, but our relation with India is very apparent. Even in the PKO, when I was in New York, it's very apparent. We fought together for the budget. We both...
Peacekeeping operation.
Yes, the peacekeeping operation. We both are the 10 largest PKO contributing countries. And for the cooperation in the defense industry, we both agree since early on that this is not about merely procurement cooperation, right? So this is about having dialogue and sharing the best practices and best technology there is. So I believe so many MOUs, so many cooperation, because we have also our strategic defense industry. in Surabaya, in Jakarta, PT PAL, in Bandung, PT Pindad. So we have established dialogue and discussion on that particular area, which is sharing best practices, sharing the knowledge of the best technology there is. And at the same time, to find best solutions when there are challenges because of certain global value chain disruption, like now, right? Because now defense industry is experiencing one of the biggest challenge in the history because of the disruption in the global value chain.
You're talking about global value chains, Ambassador Krisnamurthi. You are the president of the G20. Very successful foreign ministerial meet, the summit.
Thank you.
In November. India takes over in December as well.
All the best to India. All the best to India.
Considering how Indonesia has navigated these very, very difficult times, I must say congratulations to Indonesia as well. But what is different in Indonesia's vision for when you are president this time in the G20? And what are the outcomes that you're looking at achieving maybe after the summit?
Okay, maybe I should start with thanking India.
Because the swap?
With the one of the closest collaboration and coordination in the history of G20, because we are on par in terms of the one of the biggest player in the region. You are the biggest player in South Asia. We are the biggest player in Southeast Asia. We share also way back historical struggle to independence. So we share a lot of things that leads to very harmonized thinking and concept in foreign policy. So that I think we are successful, if you say that we are successful, because of the support of developing countries. As you may know, G20 consists of 9 developing, 11 developed countries, right? So we navigate between the two groups. That is why we are very mindful that we need the support of developing countries so that we can ensure that the developed countries also can come on board with our thinking and vision. The second. Thirdly, I believe that the summit, my president keeps saying over and over and over again, he knows very well that we changed our vision of G20 presidency. When we took over last year, December, there is nothing until February. Then it happened, all these dynamics, the global dynamics. So he knows very well that this mechanics of G20 needs the world to make a more relevant result in terms of political and more importantly economic. That's why during FMM we have only 2 main agenda, which is strengthening multilateralism, and second agenda is the food and energy security. Nothing else, because other stuff can wait until both are resolved.
Mm-hmm. Mentioning your President Widodo, and after the G7 meeting, he went to both Kyiv and to Moscow. He's invited both presidents.
He's very brave. He's very brave.
He took a train, I think, from Poland to Kyiv, right? And both presidents are invited. I don't know how that will pan out with the 11 developed countries that you're talking about, especially the Western countries. But the war in Ukraine, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the problem that's created for the whole world. For example, food security, when you're talking about, or energy security, how are India and Indonesia helping each other or others in that?
Yeah, so I believe early on, I think in March or April, the discussion between our leaders, and also ministers level increase and strengthen. If you see which at the end come viral with helicopters, both leaders sit side by side, it shows how closely we are in our dialogue, right? So India and Indonesia both share one common interest. We both have huge population. It is not in our interest to have value chain that is disrupted. Now our focus is on two, which is grain and gas. The grain, India holds lots and lots of stocks which a lot of countries have interest on. And on the gas, also fertilizers. Both us, we need it for our farmers because we are, and both countries are basically agricultural countries. So I think we should think about not only the interest of the developed countries when they said against the war, but they need to figure out what are the solutions. So that is why your minister, Jai Sankar, always voices this, my minister as well, that the interests of developing countries need to be heard, need to be listened in whatever form that is, because all high population countries are developing, right? So that is why we also involve the island countries during G20. And India supported that because many diaspora of India also in the island countries. So I think India and Indonesia, if we converge together our voices, is about 1.6 billion populations altogether. And it's quite loud for the world to listen. That's what I believe. And secondly, if we talk about what G20 can do, it's the only forum which involve in the policy making process of the world. If you see the combination of the members, APEC can be said develop and developing. Eastern can, but they are not making policy of the world. G20 does. So it is important to make G20 works and more relevant to the current dynamics. If not, then why the leaders need to meet in November, right? There must be a solution, yes.
You talked about wheat, but everybody has grain. Yeah. You had a recent visit, I think, to Uttar Pradesh, where you met Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know.
I thank him because some of the wheat comes from there.
Correct. What about palm oil? India imports a lot of palm oil from Indonesia as well. I mean, is there any movement in terms of?
Well, we opened already in April, right? But not as the speed and the, how should I say, the amount that India wants. But we have problems, we have challenges. Now, the last time I heard, 20-something companies, especially the small, medium enterprises, they're closed because the price is so low that they cannot operate. So we must make sure that this war or whatever global dynamic there is, will not jeopardize the livelihood of grassroots. That's what we talk about. Me and Yogi Ji also talk about the grassroots, because the economy is from the grassroots, not by the cities, not by urban, but the rural people. So I believe palm oil problems will be as is if we're not helping the price to be, competitive sort of, so that the commodities from Ukraine must be open so that we could balance the price. Because vegetable oils also come from there, the sunflower. Also, we need to make sure that the value chain, I remember talking about, I'm sorry, I'm talking about value chain. I remember Thomas Friedman in his book, The World is Flat, believe that the world is not round, but it's flat because of the value chain. And more, I believe now the world is much more flatter than before, because it is what it is. We cannot, some say we must deglobalize. Cannot, it's too late. So that is why we cannot deglobalize. We need to make sure that the current situation of globalization be beneficial to all of us. And therefore, the key, the doors that lock, the bridge that was tortured and destroyed must be built again, and then make sure that the value chain is happening.
And in this short time that you've been here, and even shorter, post your credentials, you only 3 months, I think, since you presented your
credentials in March,
already Uttar Pradesh. You've been to Odisha as well.
Odisha,
and that's again Assam, not Assam, but Odisha is also on the coast.
Yes.
So what are you looking at in terms of different states and Indonesia collaborating?
Well, very interestingly. So I went to 3 states already, right? So Odisha, Assam and UP. So interestingly, I see that the past, I believe still, the past needs to be translated into the future. Because every time I go everywhere, they talk about, Indonesia, we have centuries of relations, our ancestors this and that. But maybe we should change the narrative that G20, we swap. What shows? The closeness of us, that we can swap G20 presidency. Troika, we will together, from December 1st, we will be together with Brazil. We need to talk about future. So the narrative must be changed. My name is Krisnamurthi, and I'm the first women ambassador coming here. So the issue must be not changed, perhaps revitalized into the future. So in Orissa, I believe I talk about Bali Yatra. I want to revisit or revitalize the Bali Yatra. I hope, if not this year because of G20, maybe next year we have the Bali Yatra. I met some people also already talking about Bali Yatra and bringing the ship here. We have this very beautiful ship that can come to India. In Assam, we talk about disaster management. We have same problems, tremor, always. We talk about that. And bamboo in Assam. We both have same strength, but different way of thinking, which is, for me, it's very unique. How come 2 countries, 2 nations, same interest, but different thinking? It shows the closeness of the past, but then again, we need to make the past as vehicle for the future.
Well put, Ambassador. And I hope you're successful in moving that or rebuilding that bridge from the past to the future. And
hopefully.
It just doesn't remain, 2 ends. It's actually connected.
Yes.
Ukraine, again, brings up so many issues. What's happening in Ukraine and sovereignty and territorial integrity is one of them. Each country is having its own issues in its own domain. India has had it as well. Indonesia and all countries in ASEAN or in Southeast Asia have that. What is Indonesia's position vis-a-vis sovereignty and problems that it is having in its foreign policy in the area?
Well, if I talk about Indonesia sovereignty, territorial integrity, I need to say it as part of the community of ASEAN, because we have Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, we have these 3 pillars of ASEAN community, we have the ASEAN Charter, we abide to it dearly since '67, and we believe that the principle of ASEAN, which is non-intervention, is still relevant up until now. And my last point on this particular issue is that every country, every nation is not perfect, but we need to have a perfect neighbors or neighboring concept or principles, so that we can live peacefully, so that we can prosper. So with ASEAN, I believe, which is ASEAN since the beginning of time, is the cornerstone of our foreign policy, and I believe for the future also ASEAN still the cornerstone. And on that note, Indonesia will hold the chairmanship in 2023 while you're having the presidency of G20. A beautiful world, perfect world.
In terms of investment development, each country is looking for more and more opportunities. There are so many different models of whether it's bilateral, multilateral. Now, after the Quad, there was IPEF, which has also come. There's BRI. What is Indonesia's position vis-a-vis this? Is it gaining the best from everything, or how does Indonesia decide?
How Indonesia decide? Well, Indonesia decide by national interest, same like India. That's first and foremost. Our foreign policy is basically depends so much on our national interest. On the engagement that you mentioned about whatever documents there is, be it regional, sub-regional, or multilateral, or whatnot, we always say yes with a strong note, which is wait for the engagement to come about. Like, for example, IPEF. We said yes, but we need to see how they follow through.
Similar to what India has done, I think, in IPEF.
Yes, because IPEF for now is one page, and we are still waiting for the engagement to happen frequently, so that we all understand what the initiative is. Same like what we are having with RCEP. We had it for 8 years. The negotiation, we mentioned over and over again that ASEAN is the central power behind the RCEP, and that is why Indonesia wants RCEP to benefit for ASEAN also, because in RCEP, the most interesting part of RCEP is because involve 5 developed countries. That is why the negotiation is not easy. So all engagement that we have, it's considered by so many principles that is not easy to be bent by anyone, including the negotiator like me. But for India and Indonesia, in our bilateral engagement or regional engagement, ASEAN-India, we have it. Now we are revitalizing the AI, the ASEAN-India FTA. we are considering the comprehensive strategic partnership between ASEAN and India. So all of this show that now our national interest is very much so in line with India, and more so with ASEAN, because we share the same values, the same principles. Yes.
And if I can also ask you, what is Indonesia's position vis-a-vis, say, organizations like the Quad and AUKUS?
Okay. How should I say? Engagement in foreign policy or foreign relations are always important. Dialogue is more important there than no dialogue at all. Engagement in regional must be and should be considering the needs of each countries without pushing or pulling others into certain direction. We are very uncomfortable when there are other national interests unilaterally push into our national interests. We are very uncomfortable. But all engagement in the region, as well as in sub-region even, is welcome, because engagement in whatever form would help dialogue, peaceful dialogue. So Quad and you said AUKUS, we will see whether it is in collision with our national interests. We already voice our uncomfortability when AUKUS have this very interesting policy without considering our national interests. We are already voicing it. Same like Quad, I believe Quad is very important engagement, but we will need to see, because India, I think, is an excellent balance in Quad, because you're the only developing countries inside the Quad. So I think, like I said, all engagement are welcome because it's peaceful engagement, hopefully.
Ambassador Krisnamurthi, thank you for this engagement, and hoping that you build more on the India-Indonesia engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
I thank you, Amitabh. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all ours. And for our viewers, do send in your feedback about this interview. Any other questions and comments that you have, you can use all our social media handles. This is The Gist on StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi.